Hello, everyone. Thank you to our latest session of Local Gov Drupal Week 2024. Thank you so much for coming. This session, as you can see on the screen, is entitled The Circular Economy. It's sort of a deep dive into an Essex microsite called Love Essex, which is very close to my heart because I was the original product manager for it. And the other one, Jen Scopes, is also here. I think the people talking are Anthony Lindsay. Welcome, Anthony is Director of Managed Services at Annertech, which is the company that built this, is one of our suppliers. Jen, I'm not sure if you're talking. Product lead at
I
Essex
am.
County Council. Did I get your title right?
Senior product manager, I
Senior
think, but
product
I'll go with
manager.
product lead. That's fine.
Okay, that's equally grand. Before we get started, I'd just like to thank the sponsors, as we always do, to Agile Collective, who's the lead sponsor for Local Gov Drupal Week. They're a worker-owned agency that designs, builds, supports websites for purpose-driven organisations, including councils. They've been a leading technical partner for Local Gov Drupal since 2020, and they currently hold the developer contract for Local Gov Drupal, so a lot of the stuff that gets built is built by them. Thank you for sponsoring this. Also, thanks to all of our sponsors and supporters, so all the councils that fund us, all the suppliers that do, including Annertech, who's on this call, so thank you, Annertech. And also our supporting partners, including Netcall, who support the work, help us grow and grow our ambitions, dream bigger, all of those good things. We're very grateful to all of you. So just quickly on the Zoom front, you can choose how you see this meeting. I think there's a view menu top left or top right, depending on what operating system you use. You can choose how we're all seen, who you focus on, and all that sort of stuff. If you've got any questions, I think Anthony's saying he'll take them as they come. So put them in the chat. I'll be looking at the chat all the way through. I'll shout them out, or you can. I'll call you and you can do that. We'd love lots of questions. It makes sessions so much more lively. If you're curious, don't be shy. Just put your hand up or write something down. On that note, I will hand you over to Anthony. Looking forward to hearing more about it.
Okay, cool. Thanks a million, Will. So yeah, circular economy. So full disclosure, this presentation was given at DrupalCon in Barcelona. So if anybody was there, you've seen it before. And so it'll be mostly me who you're listening to. As Will said, I'm Anthony, I'm part of Annertech, and Jen is going to be sharing the stage with me. And as she said, she's, what did you say? Lead product owner or some such?
It's on the screen now. Senior product manager is my job title, but I'll answer to most things. It's okay.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so let's kick it along. And Jen, I think you're taking the first few slides, aren't you?
I will do the introduction bit. Yeah, that's fine. So I will talk to you a little bit about Love Essex. And Love Essex is the official website of the Essex Waste Partnership. And that is a partnership between the County Council and our 12 city, district and borough councils in Essex. Through the Love Essex brand and the website, the aim is to inspire Essex residents to reduce the amount of waste that they throw away by encouraging them to reuse and repair items and increase the amount of waste recycled. On the website, you'll find a mix of information about our recycling centres, links out to other council web pages, for example, around the curbside collections information, some ideas to prevent waste, and some news and campaign pages as well. So the main aims of the site are around providing education and guidance for residents. If you'd like to move on to the next slide, please, Anthony. So the site provides education to residents around what can be disposed of, where it can be disposed of, and why they shouldn't just chuck everything in the black bin. It educates users on the impact of the choices that they make. So it could include things like more waste going to landfill and the consequences of that. And then we also look at the guidance on the next slide, please. So the site also aims to provide guidance to residents, and this takes the form of signposting. So allowing users to search by the item they want to dispose of and highlighting the most environmentally friendly way to get rid of that. So the most environmentally friendly options. while still giving them all the information about all the options that are available to them to dispose of that item. Also encouraging better decisions, so hosting information campaigns on specific topics. And the site introduces did you know boxes, which are interesting factoids to pique the interest of users and encourage action. So Anthony is now going to run through the site features in a lot more detail, and I'll talk again about some of the analytics and the performance of the website at the end. Thanks.
Cool, thanks, Jen. So before I go any further, actually, it's very much worth saying that I was invited to work on this project specifically about on the search feature. It was already in progress. And Mark Conroy, who I think is here today, did all of the groundwork and a bunch of the theming and set it all up. And yeah, basically I've been standing on the shoulders of that giant to get this over the line. So kudos to Mark. Now, waste disposal search. So on the homepage, you'll see this little form here with what do you want to get rid of and where do you live. What you can get rid of, I mean, there's a vast amount of things that people need to get rid of, and there are a vast amount of ways to say each thing. Items have synonyms to cover both misspellings and different permutations. Like if you take, say, phone, for example, it might be phone, it might be telephone, it might be mobile phone. If you're in Ireland in the West, it might be phone poker. If you're in Germany, it might be a handy, or in America, a cell phone, or France, a portable. So synonyms are important. And autocomplete, you can see that little autocomplete circle thing there. Autocomplete makes it easy to use. Then postcodes. Obviously, postcodes are well known in the UK. They were introduced in about the 1850s. So everybody knows their postcode, and it goes and polls a postcode service and returns locations. And yes, partial postcodes work. So when you say you want to get rid of your phone and you want to get rid of it in Chelmsford or whatever, you get results. So the results are not your standard search results page. You get, it identifies the specific item, not necessarily the synonym, but the item that you're getting rid of. And then it starts to give you suggestions. So items can have descriptive text, might have suggestions on what not to do, like, you know, don't throw your aerosols in a fire because they might explode or whatever. And as Jen said, did you know factoids to try and drive interest and better choices. So if we have a look further down on results, you get like different kinds of disposal options. You've got your things that are online, you've got things that cover an area, you've got specific places. So it was tricky figuring out how best to present all of these disparate kinds of solution in a way that encouraged people to make environmentally friendly choices. Now, all of this didn't just get licked off the stones. We were replacing an older system built on Umbraco. And that was all very well, it worked, but it was a difficult thing to update due to this. It was driven by the spreadsheet of doom. And it was effectively a what you call it, an Excel spreadsheet trying its best to be a relational database. So it meant that there was a lot of repetition. You had to fill in the synonyms and fill in the item that the synonym related to, and then connect the two together on another tab, and then connect them to the disposal services, and a lot of repetition, a lot of options for error, or not, opportunities for error. So now we didn't like that. But then, right, so enter localgov Drupal. I presume I'm preaching to the converted here, so we don't need to go too deep into what localgov Drupal offers. But suffice to say, we got a lot out of the box. And not only is Love Essex a localgov Drupal site, but it is a localgov Drupal microsite. So that obviously, well, not obviously, that a microsite allows you to run several sites from one code base in a structured and organized way. So, you know, there you can argue as to whether or not you should be using multi-site or different instances or whatever, but the whole point is a lower total cost of ownership and more autonomy for the council, so that they can spin up a site and have less reliance on the likes of me to get it going. So overall project objectives became clear. Use microsites, leverage LGD, make it not suck for editors, make it easy to use, react to the needs of the public. So that's a biggie. And educate and guide the public. So we were working with a we were working with a chap called Stephen, who is in charge of this sort of waste disposal information service offering. And he was always, every meeting, coming back to, yeah, but in the real world, this is what people do. And in the real world, and people, and he always drove all the conversations back to the end users. So, getting started. The core of the whole system was the data model. So that's how the different kinds of information are connected together in a useful and usable way, and not the spreadsheet of doom. So the first assumption was that recycle centers were the center of the universe. And I made this, this diagram to try and illustrate the data model, and you'd have a recycle center, and a recycle center can take items, and items have synonyms, and it has disposal services, and those services might have an environmental rating. And I accompanied this with a prototype. You know, you'd show the item, you'd show the services that deal with the item and the places that take it. Nice and simple. And Steve, in his way, went, oh, that's great, but, and then proceeded to poke all the holes in the world in it, which was fun. So this was sort of iteration 2, still trying to peddle recycle centers as the center of the world, because honestly, as a developer, I didn't know the industry of waste disposal. So I needed to rely on Steve's knowledge on the ground. So then we came to version 2, because what came about was the environmental rating was, it turns out, nearly the most important thing. because it's all about putting the choices that you really want to encourage people towards at the top and discouraging all of the choices you don't want them to make. And environmental ratings seemed to depend on items and the service being used, and it all got a bit complex. So it's better than the spreadsheet, but it was still horrible. So yeah, and Will's also saying, yeah, there was great user research as well. I didn't really have any insight into that. It was coming sort of filtered through Will and Steve, with the benefit of their deeper knowledge of the problem space. So one thing that came out of discussions was distance and proximity to services. Because ideally, you want to know how far you need to go to get rid of your batteries, say. But I immediately thought, hey, why not maps? Because this proximity lark, that's going to be hard. And honestly, I was a little bit afraid of how to do it. But then we talked about maps, and it turns out that there is a map on Love Essex, and it's using the LGD directories, and that works fine. But that only shows the recycle centers. Whereas a disposal option might be a library, or it might be Tesco, or it might be something online, or it might be, and this was the real cincher, it might be a curbside collection that covers one of the dozen odd districts in Essex. So they're more difficult to put on a map. So yeah, maps serve a different purpose. The presentation of the results is designed to affect a change, whereas the map just shows relative positions. And without the district-based services, it's less useful. So users don't really care if the Colchester Recycle Centre takes babies' nappies. They just know that they have nappies they need to dispose of, and they want to know what to do and where to do it. So the waste disposal options search reframes that question positively. So back to the drawing board, and we simplified. Now, you might, looking at that data model, think we haven't simplified it much, but it was just enough. The big change was that a disposal option became linked intrinsically with the service behind it. So there was a one-to-one relationship between disposal option and the service, and then the service and an environmental rating. So everything just became simpler, and you would have, say, Chelmsford Recycling batteries, Chelmsford Recycling bottles, Chelmsford Recycling whatever. So yeah, kept everything a lot more simple and made it possible to work. And the environmental rating, which defines all of the ordering, that became drag and drop. So it's nice and easy for Steve to adjust if he needs to.
Anthony, before you move on, there's a question
Yes.
from Mark. So
Yes.
he's talking. Mark, I don't know if you want to ask your question yourself. You can, or I can.
Yeah, I don't mind. It's not really, I suppose, for Anthony, more generally for, I guess, Essex, and then more generally for local Drupal councils. I think we're great at sharing all our code and building our features together and things like that, and that saves a lot of money. And I think there's a huge potential for councils to save even more money if we had a shared resource of our research. Because every council seems to employ an agency that goes and does custom research for them, and we all come back and we build fairly similar websites. So if we could have a kind of a bank of this research is already done and this is what is kind of decided, we could end up saving as much money on the research part and maybe the design part as we do on the development part. So the long question was, is it possible to see the research that was done for this to start building up that bank?
I think it might be for Jen if that research is sort of in a shareable form.
I'm sure we've got something we can share. Maybe there's a conversation around how we can host research centrally within LGD somewhere.
So we talked about, maybe we'll take this offline, but we talked about having a research library. I think there's one in central gov, or central gov built it for local gov. Let's take it offline, but sort of directory searchable facets type thing. Yeah, I'll drop you a note. We can talk about it separately. Thank you. Sorry, Anthony. Carry on.
Cool and groovy. Yeah, great. Okay, so then getting back to distance. It turns out that doing distance isn't that hard. We used an API service provided by the Ordnance Survey. And when you do a search, we query the API with your postcode, and then it returns location data based upon your postcode. And part of that location data is a district. And we've got, as part of our data model, the districts that exist. So if we know about the district, we know it's in Essex, and then we can filter results based upon that district. Also, latitude and longitude coordinates are returned, so then we can calculate distances between the location that is returned and the locations we have of, say, libraries or recycle centers or whatever. And the distances are calculated just trigonometrically. So it's as the crow flies rather than as the wolf runs. Now, how search results are organized. So you can see this is actually mostly a screenshot from the site itself. This is what we're trying to do. We're trying to prevent waste. It doesn't become waste until you chuck it out. So actual disposal is at the bottom of the pile, and that's what we're trying to avoid through all of these other options first. We only show 3 disposal options per category of option, I suppose, like 3 libraries, 3 recycle centers, 3 online services, whatever, assuming there is 3 of each thing. And we try and show the closest ones to try and make it as easy as possible for the punters. Now, effectively, we're trying to educate people, but oh man, I left a DrupalCon thing in. Sorry about that. There's the guilty evidence. Yeah, we're trying to educate people through stealth, really, so that we aren't telling them what to do. We're just encouraging them subtly. And so as Jen had mentioned, that there's campaigns, there's thematic campaigns around, I don't know, composting or nappies or whatever. And just sort of instructional articles on the topics, but then embedded in the search results, you get these did you know boxes and the explanatory text. So at every step of the way, even if all you're looking for is, the local municipal dump, you're going to have to scroll past the things telling you what not to do and the things telling you, if you do this, this is what will happen. This is the effect of your choice. And then you get better choices presented to you before the one that we don't want.
I was just going to talk to this because I remember the research that kind of informed these things.
Yeah, great.
So there might be some content designers on the call who remember this better than me, but my recollection is that we were quite nervous about interrupting this journey, this search journey, because we're handing out sort of important information. My doorbell's just gone and it's my son standing outside, so I'm going to have to stop there. I'll come back to it in a couple of minutes if that's all right. I'm really sorry.
Yeah.
Because he will start
just butt
hassling
in
me.
when you come back.
I will. Sorry.
That's all right. Oh, the joys. Okay, we'll come back to this then. And in the meantime, we can talk about the editor experience, because if you recall, this is what we were using before, and it was horrific. But obviously with Drupal, we get nice things. We've got vertical tabs, we've got checkboxes, we've got things organized in a thematic way so that all of the options and settings and boxes that you'd expect to be connected to a thing are connected to the thing. And we worked on the editorial UI. Oh, we're back. We're back. Here, I'll just go back.
No. You finish your thing?
No.
Okay. I'm really sorry about that. It was actually just a delivery. So there was I've just run up 2 flights of stairs. Right. So we were quite nervous about interrupting this journey and putting messages in the way of providing important information. And this was like basically it was sort of a test really. So when the research team basically talked to people, they found that mostly folks didn't mind getting information if it was useful, but they didn't really want to be distracted too much. So this was our go at sort of a halfway house. Like, can we educate people a little and give them something useful? And Steve, who's sort of the content manager for this, wrote loads of these with the content designers on the team. And I think the intention was they were going to kind of get click-through tracking to see what sort of effect, which ones are going to work. The information's always contextual. So in a search for aerosols, you'll always get something about aerosols because that's the way you built it. So you'll always get something that's relevant. And I think the idea was that you get a few messages and you'd circulate, and basically you would get click tracking on that. So I don't know how it turned out. So, but I guess it's still there.
Jen's going to let you know.
Oh, okay.
So
was it a good idea or not?
Try
I don't
there,
know.
mate. Okay. UI, spreadsheet UI. Oh yeah. So standard Drupal was great and better than the spreadsheet, but we could do better. So Steve and I had lots of calls where I'd go, hey, I've built this thing for you. And he'd go, that's great, but can we? And yeah, basically we developed editor superpowers for, selecting all of the districts if he needs to, or just superpowered search for items that he needs to edit, or bulk operations to create or edit lots of disposal options at once. And of course, it being a microsite, we had to put in place extra considerations to make sure that it worked with the microsite, but also didn't bleed off into any future microsites unless we wanted to. So yeah, it's a whole world apart from the spreadsheet of doom. So then the site went live, and Steve is talking to the Recycle Center people and looking at analytics, and he is responding to user needs on an ongoing basis, because terms that are entered into search, they're captured and they're fed off to analytics, so that if new terms are searched and they're coming up with nothing, then the team know, oh, hey, we need to take account of this. Maybe this is a synonym for something that we do recycle, or maybe this is an item that people haven't thought of before and somebody needs to be able to dispose of it. So the team keeps in contact with the waste disposal partners and updates to the services and items that they take and offer. That can be done quickly and efficiently. So lastly, I'll just speak briefly on migrations, because there was a lot of content. And Steve was pretty intimidated by having to put it all in. So yeah, we made it easy by just letting him fill out a spreadsheet, not the old one, a nice simple spreadsheet, and then we could manage to, using Drupal's Migrate API, import from CSV all of the disposal options, all of the districts, all of the items, all of the synonyms, and then make sure that they were all associated with this microsite. So it meant that on day one, all the content was there. And then for any of the nerds in the audience, these are all the bits and pieces that make up the solution. Nodes are your page level content. They are the disposal options. Taxonomies are used for items and synonyms and environmental ratings. Fields connected all together. Migrations imported the content. Views drives the search. The maps is on the directory. Yeah, I can make these slides available, no bother. Views, there was some custom views filter plugins to do the location search. And this last thing, I don't even understand what it is. I got one of the clever people on the team to do that for me, to stop. It's something to do with making sure that stuff is only available on this microsite, unless you say otherwise. So, I think this is my last one. If we think back to the original project aims, did we make it easier for editors to update? Definitely. Is it easier to update due to changing surfaces? Definitely. And to respond to changing needs of the users? Definitely. It works for microsites, so lower total cost of ownership. And it was, once we got it built, it was quick to launch. Now I shall hand back to Jen for the coup de grace, how it worked.
Thanks, Anthony. So the first thing to say is that the service are really pleased with how the site is working and how it's all going, for all the reasons that Anthony has just been through. On this slide, I've included some clips from our site dashboard to show some of the performance highlights from the analytics. So you can see top left there, we've had 500,000 total sessions since launch. And it's worth pointing out, these are just the sessions where people who have accepted cookies. We're doing some work around extending being able to log people who haven't accepted cookies as well. So that should improve and that should become more accurate. But all these are based on the people who have accepted cookies. We've used a fairly crude measure of calculating digital take-up at 98.5%. And we worked this out by finding the page views as a percentage of the total interactions, with the total interactions including calls into the contact center about waste and recycling centres and booking tip slots. So it's a really good number, and the intention is to reduce the demand on the contact centre by giving people the information they need on the site. On the top right, you can see people who completed the feedback form have mostly said they found the site easy to use, which is really positive, and it's unusual sometimes to see that in public sector websites. So we're really, really pleased about that. On the bottom left, this shows the Did You Know clicks, and we can see we've had 3,500 clicks on the Did You Know components. So about 0.7% of the sessions clicked a Did You Know. And these are people who may have come to the site to do something quite transactional, like book a tip slot or find out how to dispose of something. And while browsing, they have chosen to view the additional Did You Know content, which is great. Maybe a little bit difficult to see on this slide, but the top two there are about how to dispose of electricals. Below that, we can see 349 people chose to view recycling tips, 193 how to get started with home composting, 133 looked at how to buy a compost bin, and 126 looked at ideas to reduce food waste. So although they're not massive numbers, if we can get 193 extra people in every 4-month block to start home composting, that's a real positive impact that the site has had. In the bottom right there, for interest, we've been able to pull out the top search terms that people have been looking for. So this gives us an idea of the things that Essex residents are looking to get rid of. And it's allowed the team to tailor the information on the site to what people are searching for. That's all from me. So thank you for listening. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them now or get in touch with either myself or Anthony. We'll do our best to answer those outside the session as well.
Jen, I've got a couple, if that's possible. If you go back a slide, because this is brilliant. You know, it's exactly the sort of affirmation of some things that it's good to see. I was just thinking on the ease of use. So I can't remember whether Steve had any user satisfaction stuff from the old site.
I don't know. It would have been in a different format, but it's something I can ask him about and let you know.
Yeah, I'm just because I think in a few different ways it was. I mean, there wasn't even a search on the old site. You know, like you could search the content and things. So there was a no navigation to speak of. So I think from memory. So I think hopefully those numbers will be improved. My other question was about sort of the difficult and the very difficult, and I just wondered if anyone had sort of dug into that some more and what, you know, what are they? Is there any information about that that you know of?
We've got feedback comments as well, but I think Steve is regularly reviewing them, but there's nothing outstanding which explains those. It's worth saying the Essex.gov feedback, we've got the old style feedback form as well that we've had previously, but we're rolling out the new Love Essex feedback form onto that website, so we'll be able to compare the performance of the two sites. But on the Essex.gov feedback, the feedback comments and the sentiment that people clicking is generally quite negative, but I think that is a symptom of it being a county council website more than a reflection of the site itself.
Yeah.
So that's why it's really good to see on the Love Essex site that we're actually seeing the majority of people saying it's easy or very easy.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you. Is there any more questions from anyone? When I've talked to other councils about this, because obviously I was at Essex for a bit, you know, helping with this, a lot of councils have said, "Oh, we want one. We want a waste you know, not necessarily a waste partnership, but we want a site that basically explains to our citizens how they recycle and gives them really good options." So I've heard of like 2 or 3 councils that would really like one of these. I don't know if any councils in the room going, "Oh yeah, we want one of those."
I saw someone was looking at proximity search.
Yeah. Alistair has said from I can't remember which of the Stevens you're in, Alistair, apologies. Will the code and build be shareable?
Your code repository is public, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah, that's how we work. So we're supporting that open source way of working. I'm pretty sure that anybody can get into it. If not, get in touch, and I'm sure we can give you access.
Yeah, I'm fairly sure it is open.
Yeah,
There isn't
I think it is.
there isn't a repo for that specific thing, but there are repos for. I think. Oh no,
Oh,
popular. No,
there's
ignore me. Ignore me.
there's a
Ignore me.
repo for microsites. Yeah, there you go. Marky's got it.
Yeah, cool. So it's in there.
Yep.
Awesome. We're almost at time. Are there any other questions? No questions. Okay. In that case, I think we'll wrap up. Thank you, Jen, so much. Thank you, Anthony, so much for your presentation and all your hard work on this. It's great to see it live, running and delivering.